I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wanted it to stop. By the time the jury walked in, his fate had already been decided by a computer program. They called it linguistic fingerprinting. Software that claims your writing style is as unique as your DNA. Police were told his essays were a 97.3% match to a killer's confession. That number was enough. This is how untested linguistic fingerprinting can look like hard evidence. And quietly steal a decade from a student who never pulled a trigger. 10 years lost to junk science. To understand how a number could outweigh a life, we have to start long before the verdict. Because this case wasn't decided in the courtroom. It was decided the moment a detective typed words into a computer and received a percentage back. And it started in the most ordinary place imaginable. He was 22 years old, a junior at a small state college about 2 hours from where he grew up. He was studying English literature with a minor in education. He wanted to teach high school, maybe middle school. He worked part-time at a retail store to help pay for school. His parents helped when they could, but money was tight. He was the first person in his family to attend college, and he had no criminal record, not even a speeding ticket. He wrote essays, lots of them, literature analyses, personal reflections, discussion board posts, the kind of writing every college student does, the kind of writing that would later be used as evidence to destroy his life. The murder happened on a Tuesday night in late October 2014. A woman was killed in her home on the other side of town. The violence was brutal. The community was terrified, and in the immediate aftermath, there were no clear suspects. No fingerprints that matched anyone in the system. No eyewitnesses, no physical evidence pointing to a specific person. But 3 days after the murder, someone posted a confession online. It was posted to a local community forum. Anonymous, detailed, disturbing. The writer described the crime, expressed remorse, but provided no identifying information. The IP address was routed through a VPN, untraceable, and the investigation stalled. Weeks passed. The pressure mounted. The victim's family wanted answers. The community wanted justice. And that's when someone suggested a new tool, a linguistic fingerprinting program. The software claimed it could analyze writing style and match authors with high accuracy. Just like DNA, just like fingerprints. But for words, the company that made it promised law enforcement a breakthrough. Your writing style, their brochure said, is as unique as your voice. We can identify it. The detectives fed the anonymous confession into the system, and they asked it to search for matches. They needed a pool of suspects, a starting point. So they pulled writing samples from the local area, social media posts, public discussion boards, student forums from the nearby college. The algorithm compared the confession against thousands of writing samples, analyzing word choice, sentence structure, punctuation patterns, stylistic tics, and it found a match. A student, our student. The system analyzed his publicly posted essays from class discussion boards, literary analyses, reflections on assigned readings, and it returned a number. 97.3% match. That was enough. By the time the jury heard that number, the story was already written. On paper, the software was more certain than any human witness could ever be. He was arrested on campus. He just finished a morning class. He didn't understand what was happening. "I didn't write that," he kept saying. "I've never even been to that neighborhood." But the detectives had their number. 97.3%. And to them, that was better than an eyewitness. Better than a fingerprint. It was science. At trial, the prosecution's case was built almost entirely on the linguistic analysis. They had no physical evidence connecting him to the crime scene. No witnesses, no DNA, no fingerprints. But they had the expert, the forensic linguist who had developed the software. He testified for 2 days. He walked the jury through his methodology, word frequency, syntactic patterns, lexical choices. He used terms like idiolect and stylometric analysis. He showed charts, graphs, statistical models, and he told the jury with absolute confidence, the probability that these two texts were written by the same person is 97.3%. The defense had no expert of their own, no money for one, no time to find one. They tried to question the methodology, but the expert deflected with technical jargon, and the jury believed the man with the graphs guilty, 20 years to life. He entered the state prison system at 23 years old. He'd never been arrested before, never even been inside a jail. The first night, he didn't sleep. The cell was 6 feet by 9 feet, smaller than his dorm room, smaller than any space he'd ever lived in. Every day was exactly the same. Wake at 5:30 a.m., breakfast at 6 o'clock, work detail or yard time at 7 o'clock, lunch at 11:30, more worker programs, dinner at 4:30, lockdown at 8 p.m. The first year was the hardest. His parents visited when they could, but the prison was 3 hours away, and they were getting older. His grandmother died during his second year inside. He wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. His girlfriend stayed for 6 months. Then the calls stopped coming, then the letters, then nothing. His scholarship was revoked, his credits frozen, his entire educational future gone. And every night he looked in the small metal mirror bolted to his cell wall and tried to understand how words he didn't write had taken everything from him. His court-appointed attorney, the one who defended him at trial, didn't give up. She filed an appeal. She focused on the linguistic analysis. The more she read, the more questions she had. Novel method. That meant it hadn't been widely tested. Proprietary algorithm. That meant the actual code was secret, not peer-reviewed. That meant other scientists hadn't validated it. She filed a motion for a new trial, arguing the evidence was unreliable. The appeal went to a 3-judge panel. They read the defense's arguments. They read the prosecution's response. They denied the appeal. Their reasoning: the trial court properly admitted the expert testimony. The defense was free to challenge the methodology at trial. Disagreement about scientific validity is not grounds for reversal. In other words, doubt wasn't enough, not against a number that sounded like science. The forensic linguist who testified at trial had built a career on this software. He traveled the country giving seminars to police departments and prosecutors' offices. He sold licenses to his software. He charged $15,000 per case for his analysis and testimony. He had testified in 47 criminal cases across 12 states. He had never been successfully challenged. His marketing materials claimed 99% accuracy in controlled tests. Law enforcement loved him. He gave them certainty in uncertain cases. He gave them a way to solve murders when physical evidence didn't exist. But there was something no one was asking. Had this method ever been tested in real criminal cases? Had anyone ever checked if it actually worked? No. The method that put him in prison had never passed a single independent, blind test in real criminal cases. 5 years passed, then 6, then 7. His parents kept visiting, but they were aging. His father's health was failing. His father had a heart attack in year 8. He survived, but he couldn't make the 3-hour drive anymore. And through it all, the student, now 30 years old, kept reading. Legal books, forensic science journals, anything he could get through the prison library system. He was teaching himself the law that had failed him, because he knew that number was wrong. In 2022, a new attorney took interest in his case, an innocence organization that specialized in challenging forensic science. They brought in their own expert, a linguistics professor from a major university, someone who actually studied forensic linguistics, who understood the real science behind language analysis. And when she reviewed the original report, her conclusion was immediate. This analysis does not meet basic scientific standards. The methodology is not validated. The comparison pool is inadequate. The error rates are unknown. This is not forensic science. This is algorithmic guesswork. Professor, voice. Linguistic analysis can be useful in some contexts, but it requires enormous sample sizes, careful controls, and extreme caution about claims of certainty. What was done here, comparing a few hundred words of anonymous text to a handful of student essays and claiming 97% certainty of authorship, that's not science. That's not even responsible speculation. She walked through the original report point by point. Problem 1, the sample size was too small. The anonymous confession was only 400 words. The student essays totaled maybe 2,000 words spread across multiple assignments. Problem 2, the comparison was biased. The algorithm was told to find matches, so it found matches, even if they were coincidental. Problem 3, no control testing. They never compared the confession to other random students' writing to see how many false matches the algorithm would generate. Problem 4, the 97.3% was mathematically meaningless. It was a confidence score generated by proprietary software with no transparent methodology. She cited dozens of peer-reviewed papers showing that linguistic analysis, when misused this way, was no more reliable than guessing. In my professional opinion, this analysis has no scientific validity whatsoever. Then the Innocence Project attorneys made a request. They wanted to see the original prosecution's files. All of them. And buried in those files, they found something the defense had never been shown, an internal document from the software company. It was a validation study, the one the company had done before marketing the software to law enforcement, and the results were devastating. Accuracy in controlled tests, 68%. False positive rate, 31%. Margin of error, plus or minus 15%. In other words, the software was right about 2/3 of the time. It incorrectly matched people to text they didn't write nearly 1/3 of the time. And the certainty it expressed, like 97.3%, was not a real probability. It was a confidence score that didn't account for the actual error rate. There was more. An email from the software company to the prosecutor's office 3 months before trial. We recommend describing our tool as investigative rather than conclusive in court settings. The algorithm performs best with samples of 5,000 plus words. Smaller samples increase error risk. We advise supplementing linguistic analysis with other forms of evidence. The prosecutor had read this email and never disclosed it to the defense. There was even more. A draft academic paper written by the forensic linguist 5 years before the trial. Stylometric analysis shows promise as an investigative tool, but significant challenges remain before it can be considered courtroom ready. False positives remain common, particularly with small sample sizes. Much more research is needed. That paper was never published. It was never mentioned at trial. In private, he called it experimental. In court, he called it proof. And then, in late 2023, something else happened. A detective reopening cold cases decided to run DNA evidence through an updated database. The system found a match, a different person, someone with a violent criminal history, someone who lived 3 blocks from the victim in 2014. The Innocence Project attorneys obtained this person's publicly available writing, old social media posts, forum comments. They ran a proper linguistic analysis. The stylistic similarities were overwhelming. 3 independent linguistics professors reviewed the comparison blind, without knowing which sample was from the real suspect. All 3 identified clear stylistic matches. When they compared the student's writing properly, using appropriate sample sizes and controls, the match disappeared. He was statistically no more likely to have written the confession than any other random college student. The Innocence Project filed a motion to vacate the conviction. The hearing took 3 days. The new linguistics experts testified. The hidden documents were presented. The false positive rates explained. The current prosecutor, not the one who tried the case, reviewed everything and acknowledged, in light of new evidence regarding the reliability of the linguistic analysis and DNA evidence implicating another individual, the state cannot sustain its burden of proof. The judge vacated the conviction. After 10 years, 2 months, and 17 days, the student was released. He walked out on a Tuesday morning in January 2024. He was 32 years old. He put on the clothes he'd been wearing the day he was arrested. They didn't fit quite right anymore. His mother and father were waiting. They held him for a long time. And as they drove away, he looked back at the building that had held him for a decade. And then he looked forward. And he had no idea how to exist in the world anymore. The college campus had changed completely. New buildings, new students who'd been children when he was arrested. His old dorm room was unrecognizable. The diner where he used to study was gone. His parents' house looked smaller, older. His father moved slowly now, still recovering from the heart attack. His friends had graduated, gotten married, had children, built careers. He scrolled through 10 years of life he'd missed, and everyone had moved on. He tried to apply for jobs. Every application asked, "Have you ever been convicted of a crime?" He checked yes. Even though the conviction was vacated, he had to explain, and most places stopped responding after that. He looked in a mirror, a real mirror, not the metal prison one, and barely recognized himself. He'd kept a journal in prison. They said the math doesn't lie, but I'm not math. I'm a mistake in someone else's code. He was offered compensation under the state's wrongful conviction law, $50,000 per year of wrongful imprisonment, $500,000 total, before taxes, before legal fees, for 10 years. That works out to about $136 per day, $5.68 per hour. For every hour of his 20s spent in a cage for a crime he didn't commit. The state issued a statement. Evidence available at the time was considered reliable by the court. The conviction was obtained in good faith. We are committed to ensuring justice. No admission of wrongdoing, no apology, no acknowledgement that they stole a decade of a man's life based on algorithmic guesswork. The forensic linguist who testified, still offering his services, still testifying in cases, no professional discipline, no sanctions, no consequences. The prosecutor who failed to disclose the error rates and company warnings, she's a judge now. The software company, still selling the software to law enforcement agencies. Updated branding, same questionable methodology. When junk science wears a suit and calls itself artificial intelligence, it doesn't just make mistakes. It manufactures certainty. And in a courtroom, certainty is a weapon. It tells juries, don't trust your doubts, trust the machine. It tells judges, this is beyond your understanding, trust the expert. It tells prosecutors, you don't need physical evidence, you have math. But certainty can be wrong, catastrophically wrong. And this wasn't an isolated case. Linguistic fingerprinting has been used in criminal prosecutions across the country, despite warnings from actual linguistics researchers, despite lack of peer review, despite unknown error rates, because it's being sold as a solution to overwhelmed detectives who need answers, to prosecutors who need to close cases, to a system that values efficiency over accuracy. Linguistic fingerprinting, coming to a courtroom near you? He's free now, but he's not whole. 10 years of his life, years he should have spent building a career, forming relationships, living, were taken by a computer program that was never validated, an expert who overstated his certainty, and a system that never asked the right questions. When an algorithm decides your fate, make sure someone checks the math. This story is dramatized and fictional. No real individuals are depicted. However, linguistic analysis software is being marketed to law enforcement agencies across the United States. Many of these tools have not been independently validated in real-world criminal cases. Peer-reviewed research consistently warns against overstating the certainty of authorship attribution based on writing style alone. As of 2025, there are no standardized protocols, error rate studies, or accreditation requirements for forensic linguistic analysis in criminal prosecutions. If you believe you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted based on questionable algorithmic evidence, contact an innocence organization in your jurisdiction. Subscribe for more investigations into algorithmic injustice, junk science, and wrongful convictions. Have you ever trusted a computer result without questioning how it reached that conclusion?